PR is really about visibility, right? Like we are all as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as content creators, creators in general, you're trying to get in front of more people. And I think PR is one of the best ways to get in front of new people. Of course, I'm a little bit biased because I have a PR agency, but I also have a reason why I think it is the best. It is the way in which you can share your story with an audience of people.
Hey friends, it's Haley from Teachable. I'm really excited to have Brittney Lynn on the show today. She's a public relations expert with a knack for connecting with others. In this episode, we dive deep into the foundation of public relations, the importance of having PR for your brand or business, and what you can do today to start landing press.
Welcome to Everything is Teachable, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes to learn how everyday creators have transformed their skills and passions into online courses and businesses.
Brittney Lynn is the founder and CEO of the Human Connection Agency, a public relations agency that serves purpose-driven entrepreneurs worldwide. She has over 10 years of experience working in the online marketing industry and has a passion for helping others grow their reach, revenue, and impact through strategic public relations. She's also the host of the Human Connection podcast, where they dive deep into the topic of how entrepreneurs and small business owners can be better at building real, authentic relationships with their audience. Brittney and her team have landed clients in Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, U.S. News and World Report, and Washington Post, to name a few. Brittney, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy to have you on. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so thrilled to be here. I can't wait to get into the conversation.
This is going to be a good one. I have a good feeling about it.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'd love to know more about the Human Connection Agency and kind of your background.
Yes. So my name is Brittney Lynn, and just like a fun fact for everyone to know, my middle name is also Lynn. So my name is Brittney Lynn Lynn. It is spelled the same. I married into that, but it just makes me very memorable. So it's just like a nice icebreaker that I just like to share with everybody. So call me Brittney Lynn, whatever you want to call me. Yes. And I started my business about 5.5 years ago. And so my business right now is a PR agency where we pitch people to podcasts. We actually pitched some people to this podcast, and that's kind of how we got connected. And we pitch people also for publication interviews as well as TV, both local and national. And so I actually have a PR degree. I worked in corporate for about 5 years, and my husband and I were paying off all of our debt for me to be able to start a business. I actually found podcasts. That's kind of like what opened my eyes to this whole other online business world. And then he got a new job in Dallas. And so we moved down there about 5.5 years ago for me to be able to start my business. And yeah, we've just been going ever since. And now we're actually in this new life transition where we are converting a Sprinter van to live and travel out of with our 2 dogs.
That's so fun.
Yes. So we're like literally days away from being done with it and heading out on our first trip. So yeah, I think that that'll be kind of a little bit of a part of the conversation, but that's kind of how I started my business and like what it is right now. And I'm sure we'll just dive into more details.
Yes. So what drew you into pursuing public relations as a career?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I did graduate with a PR degree. And I think what really drew me to that during college was I've just always been the connector. Like, I just am always like anyone that I meet at a party, a friend that I have, I'm just always thinking of, oh my gosh, I need to introduce this person to so and so. And I've always loved media of that sort of just like I remember having like stacks of magazines in my childhood bedroom. I like weirdly like kept all of them like for a really long time. I don't know why I was like thinking I was going to keep them for like 25 years because what are you going to do with a magazine from like 1993? I don't know, but I had plans for it apparently. And so just like the combo of those two things of like connecting people, really digging into people's stories, kind of their why behind why they started their business, as well as just really loving media. That's kind of when it drew me into it. But whenever I worked in corporate, I actually was more in like broader digital marketing and social media. So I didn't do a ton of PR work during my corporate days. And ironically, I never worked at a PR agency. And now I run a PR agency, which is kind of bizarre to some. But I think I applied to a lot of agencies and I just never got hired. And so I think a part of it was the universe was like, you just are not going to be a fit for a traditional PR agency because for those that aren't aware, in traditional PR agencies, the super big ones, a lot of times it's very high pressure. You're on, dozens of client accounts. You're not really personally connected to those accounts or like what it is that you're pitching. It's very demanding. You're there a lot of late hours, all of that kind of stuff. And so I just run my agency in a very different way. So I think it kind of helped that I didn't previously work in an agency because I didn't have any of those like bad habits or, kind of mindset around, oh, this is how I'm supposed to run an agency. I kind of created the thing that I would want to work for. And yeah, so about a year into me starting a business, like the first year was just kind of, as I'm sure similar like past guests of the podcast, you're just kind of like doing whatever, like you're just figuring it out. And then about a year in is when I really started focusing in on PR and pitching to podcasts, publications, and TV. And it kind of just grew over time through referrals. And yeah, even still to this day, everybody's like, somebody messages me and they're like, hey, who do you know that does this? I know you know someone. So who can you connect me with?
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I think that's really great that you were able to really start from a perfectly clean slate, do things the way you wanted to do it. Because I know that agency life can be really, really intense sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
having that opportunity to kind of break away from that mold, I'm sure is really important.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I think it helped and it helps me, stand out even when I'm looking for people to work with me, where it's like I run a different type of agency. You're not going to be staying up all night. We try to focus on working with purpose-driven entrepreneurs. So it's not just, oh, I'm an entrepreneur and I want to make, 8 figures. And that's like what my primary focus is. They're really dedicated to helping the people that they help. And so that just makes for a better work experience as well.
Definitely. And I mean, of course, this is probably it's a very loaded question and we can go in as deep as we want into this, but
Mhm.
why is public relations so important for any business?
Yes, I love this question. So, PR is really about visibility, right? Like, we are all, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as content creators, creators in general, you're trying to get in front of more people. And I think PR is one of the best ways to get in front of new people. Of course, I'm a little bit biased because I have a PR agency, but I also have a reason why I think it is the best. It is the way in which you can share your story with an audience of people. And to me, and this is like no hate, no shade to, paid Facebook ads or anything like that, because I think all types of marketing is important and they serve different, pieces of the puzzle. But with PR, me coming onto this podcast, someone that, dedicated listeners that you guys have to this podcast, they're hearing my story. This is a long form interview. We can really dive into a lot of different topics. They get to hear from me. They get to hear my experience. That's so much different than seeing, a Facebook ad on your news feed, right? And again, this is not to say like I have used Facebook ads in the past. I'm just using that as an example because I think a lot of people think that they need to focus on those types of things to get exposure. And there are other ways that you can get more organic exposure. And I think it helps make new people a little bit warmer to you, right? So let's say there's a listener here that has never heard of me, never listened to me before. Them listening to, this 30-minute conversation that we're going to have, they're going to know me a lot more than if they just saw a Facebook ad for me or, a Pinterest pin. And again, those things serve different purposes, but people like to connect with other people. That's why my agency is called Human Connection Agency, and why my podcast is called the Human Connection Podcast, is because people like to, you buy from other people. And I think especially with entrepreneurs and online entrepreneurs, you're really looking for people that you resonate with. And so you can be that person for others out there. And so for you to share your story in different media ways, such as podcast interviews, being interviewed on top publications, and even TV, if that's where your audience spends time, it just can go a lot further and can get you a lot warmer leads and true connections with new audience members.
Oh yeah, that is so key, I think. And when we start talking about entrepreneurs like really needing that opportunity to get in front of more people, and they are thinking about, oh, I really do want to get more press, but I have no idea where to begin. What advice would you give to fellow entrepreneurs and creators who do want to land press? What is kind of the best first step to take?
Yes. Great question. So I'd scoot back a little bit and say, I think a lot of people maybe listening to this podcast, maybe to start, you're like, PR is not for me. I'm not ready. I would maybe question you on that. Maybe that's true. But if you have, a proven service or a proven product or membership, whatever it is that you sell, if you have had people purchase it, have a good experience with it, and if you are ready to scale that, you're just looking to just really blow it out of the water and grow your audience, like you are ready. It doesn't matter if you don't have 10,000 followers, like you don't need a certain amount of social media followers to be able to do this and to get the benefits out of PR. So I just want to, it can be intimidating, right? It's intimidating to put yourself out there, to pitch yourself. You are being vulnerable because you could get a no. And who likes getting no's? Nobody likes getting no's.
Right.
But I will say that is the nature of pitching. So whenever you do start pitching yourself for opportunities, you will get no's. You will get ignored. That is just kind of how it happens. That's how this works. So that is normal. And I think one of the best places to start is to start on podcast interviews, and to, the lowest hanging fruit would be people that you are already connected to. Maybe you have some connections to podcasts and to podcast hosts where, that their audience can get value out of what you have to teach. Start with those. Get a few quick wins before you start pitching people that you don't know. Like me and you weren't connected whenever like we pitched, because we pitched several people to you guys, and we'll just like take you behind the scenes if you want to know. Like we cold pitched you guys a few people who we were like, they use Teachable. They can speak on these topics. We see that you haven't talked about these topics in a while, or you haven't ever talked about them. So here's an opportunity for you to have this piece of content for your podcast. But I know that can be intimidating, right? It's intimidating to cold pitch. I do have free pitch templates for people to download. If you just go to brittneylynn.com/teachable, you can download the free pitch templates and get access to those. And it actually also has examples of pitches that have gotten yeses. So you can kind of see it in action as well.
Amazing.
But I would definitely start with podcasts, because that can give you the biggest return on investment of your time and your energy. And like, some people, it's like it's not going to be a fit for your audience. Your audience doesn't watch TV, or, they don't watch the local news channels and stuff like that. But podcast interviews, there's a podcast on literally any type of topic. And I know that you guys have a wide variety of creators that listen to this podcast, that use Teachable. Guys, there's podcasts about fly fishing. Like there's podcasts about any topic
literally
that you
anything.
can think of.
Yes.
Literally anything. So just searching for those, finding those top podcasts, building connections with those hosts, and then in pitching yourself.
That was really, really valuable. And back in the day, a long time ago, I used to intern at a small PR agency. And I remember when I had to do cold pitching, I was sweating. I was so nervous and terrified. And I was a lot younger then, but I'm sure people, across the board can get a little nervous when they think about cold pitching someone and not really knowing what to say. So let's, if you don't mind, I'd love to kind of take it from a creator pitching themselves to be on a podcast. What would be kind of a good framework for setting that up and making sure that they are really showcasing their value right away?
Yep.
Because I know, we're all moving so quickly. We need to like get all of our points out kind of quickly. So what kind of advice would you give around that?
Yeah, great question. What I would advise is one, make sure that you're pitching podcasts that are relevant to you. So even before you start writing something, and when I say a pitch, I'll just define it. I mean an email pitch. We send all of our pitches via email. Back in the day, people used to call journalists and all that kind of stuff. No, not many people use the phone to pitch anymore. So we're talking about just sending emails. So make sure that you're pitching the right types of places because you want to make sure that your topics are relevant to that audience. So if you are pitching topics to a podcast where that audience doesn't need to know your topics, it's already not going to land because that host is going to be like, this person doesn't make sense for my podcast. The fly fishing example. If I pitch myself to a fly fishing podcast as a publicist, they'd be like, what are you doing? You're not talking about fly fishing. Like, goodbye. I don't fly fish. So, that doesn't make sense. So identifying the right podcasts can save you a lot of time because you want to make sure that you are pitching topics that are important for that audience because the pitch should be about that audience. What is that audience going to learn after listening to an interview with you? Why is that important? Why do they need that now? And so thinking about the audience, because every podcast host, you're not thinking about what's interesting to me. I mean, maybe you are a little bit, but you're thinking about what do the listeners of this podcast want to hear? What do they need to know? So that's always the lens that you need to be thinking of. So, the beginning of the email can be like a one-line introduction to yourself, like, hi, my name is so-and-so. This is what I do. This is who it's for. And this is how I do it, basically. So just like a one line, like if they don't know anything else about you, they know exactly what you do and who you serve in that first line of the email. And then you can go into, I'd like to pitch myself to be a podcast guest on your podcast. I think I'd be a great fit. And then you can go, into a line or two of, here's why this is important. Here's why my topics are important to your audience and why they need to know it. I typically recommend people bullet point out actual topics that they can talk about. Because a lot of times, I'm sure you do this, you're looking at an email, okay, who can be a guest on this podcast? I'm going to scan and look at the bullet pointed topics to see what they can talk about.
Yes.
And with those, look at podcast episode titles, look to see how they are phrased. A lot of them are phrased in like how-tos, the X steps to blah, 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 find out the reason why you're missing out on something. That's not a great topic title, but looking at the structure of podcast episode titles, you will start to see a lot of common patterns. That's how podcast hosts want to phrase their episodes. So if you can already put it into a framework of this is what the episode could be titled, they're going to pull from that. And 99% of the time, when we get a yes from a podcast host, they're pulling from one of the topics that we sent them. So it makes their job easier because you don't have to go back and forth with like, okay, well, what can you actually talk about? Like, what can you teach my people? Link to your website, link to any of your socials. If you have a press page, link to that, just so that people can find out more information about you. Make sure that you're, a legitimate business owner. You have the proof of your experience. And then that's it. That is the pitch.
Wow, that was just a few minutes of pure gold. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you are you have so much expertise and experience with, teaching people how to get their pitches together. This had to have been a topic that you were asked about a lot over and over again when you had your business, which leads, I'm sure, into you wanting to develop online courses. So I was curious to know about like your online course journey and what made you start thinking about bringing them into your business.
Yes. So when I was first starting, it was truly like service-based business, just like one-on-one client work. And at the very beginning of my business, I did have a course, which I had no business creating a course at that point in time. I had been in business for 2 months. I had no idea what I was doing. So that course doesn't even exist anymore. So don't even try to find it, people. So I really honed in on my services and, getting my team in place, because that was really like the bulk of where my business was coming from. And so I really needed to focus on that. And then fall 2019, I joined Pat Flynn's mastermind, whom I know, like I think he's not on the board of directors of Teachable, but he's involved in Teachable and has been a very big fan.
Yes, we love Pat.
Yes. And so I was in his mastermind. And so I joined that intentionally for the reason of, okay, this is going to be the year that I'm in this program is the year that I'm going to build my course. And this by no means means that like you need to join a mastermind to be able to create a course. Like you could absolutely do it on your own. But I was ready to up level. And I knew that learning from him, because he's created all of these amazing courses, he's very good at it, being connected with other like-minded individuals where they could give me feedback about the course. And so we had our first retreat that fall. And that was really where I started thinking about, putting together the framework of the course. And it was really at the time just adding on just like another revenue stream. Like that was the thought process behind it. And so I started dripping it out. I pre-sold it. So I literally had created nothing and I pre-sold it in December. And then I had a round of people who were starting it in January of 2020, and I dripped it out to people. And then, pandemic happened, and that was, and still kind of is happening. And so that kind of just like, I had all these plans of like relaunching the course. And then it was just like, this does not make sense. Like I got to pause, clients were dropping. Like it was just an insane time for everyone. I'm sure many listeners can relate.
Mm-hmm.
And then personally, I went through something really tough where I had lost my 24-year-old cousin to leukemia in June of 2020. So this was, again, middle of the pandemic, a lot of family stuff going on, processing that grief. And so that situation happening is kind of what made my husband and I reflective of like how we're spending our time, and like, are we doing what we love? And like, are we spending, are we in the location that we want to be in? And so then we basically created this plan of us to convert a Sprinter van, for him to quit his job, and for us to travel. And I swear that this was related to creating a course. And so, as we were, creating all the plans for that, it was really like, okay, I'm so glad I have my course here that I can really focus on and grow over the next year and years to come, because that is what really helps us have the lifestyle flexibility that we want while being a digital nomad, kind of traveling wherever, not having exactly like a home base, because we still have the agency side of my business. We are still serving entrepreneurs, but a lot of times that is dependent on my time, and creating a course that can be kind of purchased whenever is really great and kind of fuels that. And so this last half of 2021, I'm doing a lot of exciting things with the course and really just like focusing on that side of my business. And I'm just, at the time when I starting creating all of this, I didn't know that I would be doing what I am doing now. Like never thought I'd be living in a Sprinter van, but never say never, people. But that, I knew I was doing it for a bigger purpose. And at the time I just didn't know why. And now I know why I invested the time and the effort and energy. And so it's really just equipping us to be able to live the life that we want to live.
Right. Well, first off, I'm so, so sorry for your loss. And it is such a beautiful thing for you and your husband to be able to have the realization of, okay, this is what we want to do with our lives, and we're going to follow our dreams and get this van and travel all over the country. Like that is incredible. So congratulations.
Yes. Thank you so much. We're very excited.
What are you most excited to work on with your online course moving forward?
Yes. So I'm updating all of the content. So whenever it was first created, it was, January 2020. And our world is completely different since then. So, and a lot of stuff with media had also changed or was realized as well. So I'll definitely be creating updates. I do a challenge typically every year that's called Pitch Fest, where it's just a 5-day free challenge where people can participate and land their first media mention and send their first media pitch. So I'll be doing a lot of fun updates with that. And it's nice that I have a base to start from instead of like, oh, I have to create this whole new thing. But for anyone that's listening where maybe you haven't created your first course yet and it's just like hard to get started, I would highly recommend pre-selling it and then just dripping it out. I dripped it out. So I was creating it as I went. And I don't really know if Teachable like recommends that.
We kind of
Hopefully you
give
guys recommend that.
we've definitely recommended it. Of course, we are like, hey, if you want to do it this way and do it all at once, then that's fine. But I actually am so
Yes.
glad that you're bringing this up because I did want to ask you the benefits that you saw of dripping your course out and why you think that that's like a great method to
Yes.
take.
Yeah. And again, like there's a million ways that you can create your course, right? This is just like one way. I could not have created my course unless if I dripped it out. Like I just would not have created it. I would not have sat down and spent days and days of time just like creating the content. Like I just wouldn't have done it. And I needed to pre-sell it to one, like get some money to basically be like, okay, this is a valid idea. Like people want this. And now I have to create it. I'm so much a person where like I will please others, which is like sometimes like a bad thing, like it's like you should do things because like you want to do them
Right.
and be motivated by yourself. But sometimes I just use like my personality to my advantage. And it's like, look, I'm accountable to other people. And like I just am. And so if I know that people have paid for this course, I will create it. Like it will
Right.
be created and it will be amazing. And we were able to, I liked dripping it out as well because I was able to edit and kind of like know in real time what people wanted so that whenever I was creating the next module, I could make sure to include that information into the course instead of just me assuming of what everybody wanted to know and create the whole thing and then there'd be all these questions where it's like, "Oh shoot, I didn't cover that." And of course, there are ways that you can, add those in later on if you wanted to, if you did create your entire course. But if you are a type of person like me that is accountable to others and like you'll do it if you have that pressure, I highly recommend dripping it out.
Yeah, I think it's a really good method to kind of do some reflection too and kind of track how people are doing, and then from there you can kind of, like you said, switch it up if you need to, or
Yep.
if it's great, just keep on going. I'm curious to know though, when you were going through this process of dripping out the content, how did you kind of stay organized and like give yourself different timelines to making sure that it was all going out on the right cadence and all of that?
Yep. So I dripped it out every Monday. So every week there would be a new module that came out. And I did do when I dripped it since I was doing it live. So my course has 5 modules. When I got to it was either before week 3 started or after week 3, I gave an implementation week because I knew that a lot of people would get either overwhelmed with the content or they would get behind. Life happens. And so I wanted people to have a catch up week where it's like, all right, there's not going to be new content this week. You're going to implement what we have been already covered so you can catch up.
Mhm.
People really, really appreciated that. And I think that can be anytime that you're running a course live, I think that can be really, really helpful for people because there's always things that pop up where people get behind. So I think that helps your students get more wins and catch up instead of just like always like throwing content their way.
Right.
So yeah, I would like work. I had a little bit of a framework of like what would be covered in the modules ahead of time. So I wasn't going in like completely like, hey, I'm selling this course and like you don't really know anything of what's going to be in it, but I was able to kind of like edit and tweak and add on as the weeks progressed. And so I just knew that like every Monday, there needed to be the next module out. And so sometimes I would work ahead. And I would, get like 2 modules done. Other times it was like, I'll be honest, I was just working up until like I was going to be releasing it,
Right.
because I don't know, I just work well under pressure. So just kind of work for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a win-win situation. It kind of is helpful for both parties. In the creator sense, it's giving you enough time to reassess the curriculum if you need to have like a fresh slate when you're approaching releasing the new module. And then for students, it's giving them the opportunity to approach the course, you know, they're not going into it and seeing everything all listed out and feeling maybe a little overwhelmed, like, oh my God, look
Right.
how many modules I have to get through.
Yep. Yep. And I will say one like tech tool wise, because a lot of, big program creators, it's like they have the fancy video and like they have a
Mm,
studio and all, and like that is great and amazing. But like I was doing this out of my house in Dallas. Like I didn't have any of that fancy equipment. And so it's like, okay, what's like the lowest barrier to entry of like me starting this? And like the easiest way that I can get this done. So I would just record. So I had slides. I would just record like a Loom video. So Loom is, I don't know if you're not familiar, it's just a screen recorder, but you can also have like your picture there as well. And so I would just like record my screen because that was like a super easy tool to use. So I didn't use any fancy like video work. Like there was nothing like behind the scenes of me. Like it was just like me, my slides, and like that was it. And again, like I'm
yes.
going to up level it this next time. Like I'm going to improve it. But again, I just needed to get something out there. I needed to get started. And that was the easiest way to start.
I really appreciate you sharing that because I think that a lot of creators who are really in the beginning stages, that and feeling like they need to have all the fancy equipment and all these super high tech
Mm-hmm.
videos and all this kind of stuff, when in reality, if you don't already have it and you're not already super well versed, which is okay, you don't need to have that to make really engaging material for your curriculum.
100% agree. And you're doing this for the long term, so you can always improve over time. Every time I
Exactly.
do a launch of my course, I'm always trying like I'll try one new thing or I'll add, one new aspect or a new bonus or something like that, but you don't have to have all those things in the beginning.
I completely agree. And I think that, hearing that, I hope, and whoever is listening right now, like can make them feel a little bit more relieved to know that creating an online course is super accessible. Like you can film
Mhm.
videos on your phone, you know?
Mhm.
So it's definitely like a lower, like you said, a lower barrier of entry. And just putting something out there is the most important part because you can always go back to it. You can always improve. You can always change whatever you need to change.
Totally agree.
Yes. So I'm curious if you were starting an online business today, what is something that you would do in the first month or two?
If I was starting an online business today, so this is what I would do. Maybe this is a little bit of a different question, but this is what I would do differently than what I did. I wasted so much time trying to make my website perfect where I wasn't spending enough time like getting myself out there in front of potential people that could pay me money to work for them. And I just thought everything had to be perfect on my website and it just doesn't. Like it
Mhm.
yes, like you need a website, but there's just so many easy tools out there now to use where you can like quickly get up a website. I was just like poking around with the colors all of the time. It was just I was wasting time because I was scared of putting myself out there
Mhm.
and saying like, "Hey, I'm a business owner and this is how I can help you." I didn't think much about like I didn't think as much about like this is the transformation that I can offer to people. This is the service that I can offer or the product that I can create. And that's how you make money, right? Like that's how you're able to
Exactly.
continue being a business owner. So, I would just shorten that time because I wasted several months doing tasks like that.
Yes, and I feel like that is so totally a universal feeling amongst many entrepreneurs and creators of feeling like it has to be perfect. But maybe, what are some if someone's like really developing their website for the first time and trying to figure out, oh my God, like what do I even put on here for it to be good enough to at least publish? What are some
Mhm.
like key parts that someone should have on their website to make sure that they're like giving visitors a proper understanding of who they are and what their business is all about?
Yep. I mean, the most obvious answer is, your services or products
Mhm.
that you sell. Like, and I think if you're very new to online starting an online business, one of the easiest ways to get in is service-based business. And I understand why a lot of people don't do that or don't want to do that because it is a little bit of exchanging time for money. Now, we don't charge like hourly, like we have retainer rates, but like it is an exchange of work. Like we do this work that takes us time, our clients are paying us for it. And I think a lot of people want to skip to the creating an online course and, digital products and all that. And I think that is great. I millions of people have successful businesses with that. But also with that, you need an audience. And so how are you going to build that audience, and how are you going to get known of like, hey, my work is valuable and is helpful to people? One of the quickest ways to do it is offering services, and then as well as creating content. Like you need either blog posts or podcast episodes or videos, whichever way in which you like to create content. You need content for people to consume. And that's really how I got one of my first clients. Was I started guest blogging on some other people's websites. That's how one of my clients found me, and we worked together for 4 years. She actually lived in Malaysia. She lived in a totally different country from me. But, we worked together for so long, and that was just from like me creating content, and she liked the piece of content, and then she wanted to work with me. And what I mean by content is like actual tips and valuable, like this is how to do something, how to pitch the media. Like that could be like a blog post, that those are kind of types of topics that I cover on my podcast. You need to teach people something. They need to learn from you, because then that helps it make a connection to, okay, now if you want to take this further, enroll in my course. But if nobody has any content to consume of you, they're not going to know what they can learn from you.
Definitely. I think just having that good baseline of free content. So, like you said, you're providing value, and people can look at that and be like, okay, wow, I trust this person. I trust
Mhm.
their expertise. I'm interested in learning more. And I really like what you said about picking content that you actually enjoy creating. I think
Mhm.
people can definitely start to feel like a little overwhelmed by how much is possible to create. And it's just so important for people to know that you don't have to do every single thing. You don't have to be on every single social media platform. You don't have to be creating 3 videos a day for YouTube. You can just find what you really like and what you're good at, and then just go from there and double down. Then that way I feel like it's more authentic.
Yeah, 100%. And it's easier for you to do. So I started with a podcast because to me, it's like I can plop a mic down. I can ramble for days. Like me and you could be talking for hours, and I have no problem with that. Whereas if I told myself I got to write a blog post, I would just stare at an empty Google Doc screen. Now that I have like a lot of podcast content, that's in a rhythm, I'm going to be adding blog posts, but I'm getting help with that because I don't like writing blog posts. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have, the work. I if I started from there.
Right.
And so I had to start with something that felt easier for me. Now, to other people, I literally talked to a friend about this, and she's so much a writer. And she's like, why would you do a podcast? That sounds like so much work. I'm like, are you kidding me? I have an editor. She just edits out everything. Like, it's so easy for me. But
Right.
for her, it's easier for her to write. So, really, like knowing yourself and knowing what you enjoy is really helpful.
Definitely. I completely agree. And to kind of shift away a little bit from the more business talk, something that we're really passionate about and we care a lot about at Teachable is, our creators and entrepreneurs just taking care of themselves. I feel like there can be the tendency for there to be the no sleep hustle mentality 24/7 kind of thing as you think about entrepreneurship. And we definitely kind of want to take a more holistic approach and kind of make sure to be like, no, it's okay to take the time you need to take care of yourself. Entrepreneurship is not easy. So with that being said, how do you usually practice self-care? And, when you realize you're feeling maybe a little burnt out, like what are some of the things you do to take care of yourself?
Yeah, I love this question. I'm very much I have never been a hustle person, stay up 18 hours of the night.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just like, that's not me. It's never been me from the beginning. And really, we are our business. And so if we are burnt out, if we aren't taking care of ourselves, you can't move forward. And so you really do need to practice self-care. The ways in which I practice it, I really try to get enough sleep. I need sleep. And there are some people who they can thrive on 4 hours of sleep. I am not that person. And so really getting in tune with yourself and not judging, because I love reading, the morning routines of people and the nightly routines of,
Mhm.
business owners. I think we all like just love a little inside peek into those types of things.
Definitely.
But some of those things, it's not taking into account like how you live your life. So like me getting ready to live out of a Sprinter van, like that's a different type of lifestyle than someone who is a parent to two toddlers and has to take them to school. Like our morning routines are probably going to be different. And so finding what works for you is really important. And so getting in tune with yourself and just like not having any judgment around it. So it's like, I need a lot of sleep. Like, I just don't judge myself with that. Like, I'm not going to be a person that sleeps for only 5 hours. Eating well, like meal prepping and getting in movement, whether it's my like morning routine of walking my dogs, getting in a quick workout, just those types of things that help me throughout the day be more. So it's like I already have lunch prepped, it's healthy. I know that it'll fuel me for the rest of the day. I don't have to think about like, oh, what am I going to cook, for lunch today and make it healthy. Again, those are like simple things, but those really, help take care of myself and keep me energized.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And yes, it definitely does look different for everyone else. But again, I love hearing what everyone does with their specific morning routines.
Oh,
It's
I'm
so
obsessed.
interesting. It's
Yeah.
so cool to see what
Yeah.
everyone does. So, where can people connect with you or learn more about your services and just yourself?
Yes, you can go to humanconnectionagency.com. That is the website. You can learn all about our services. We do have, so we have the done for you services, we have the course, we have a variety of products in between. So just like any type of entrepreneur, whether you're just starting out with your visibility, definitely go check those out. On the interwebs everywhere, I'm Brittney L. Lynn. So that's on Instagram, Twitter, and then our van life account. If you are interested in what it's like for these two adults and two dogs to be living in a van, we are
Yes.
Life with the Lyns. And we also have a YouTube video or YouTube channel as well. So that's on YouTube and on Instagram for that account.
That is so exciting. I cannot wait to follow that journey.
Yay.
Before we hop off, do you have any last words of wisdom or inspiration for our listeners?
Oh man, I would just say my kind of mission in life is to share with people that your story matters. And so, however you got to be who you are today as a business owner, as a creator, people need to hear that. People need to hear from you. And you're doing people a disservice if you're not sharing your story and you're not sharing your experiences. So, if that helps motivate you to get you out of the fear of pitching yourself and putting yourself out there, because people need you. People need to hear from you. So that is the inspiration that I would leave you with.
Thank you so much for sharing that. This was an amazing conversation, and I'm so appreciative for you taking the time to come on the show. I'm really excited, and I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks so much, Haley.
This podcast is produced by Teachable, your go-to platform for course creation. Since 2014, we've helped more than 100,000 creators earn over $1 billion from online courses and coaching products. How do we do it? By managing all the logistics, like coding and payment processing, to make it easier than ever for you to share your knowledge online. To learn more, visit teachable.com.